What were the circumstances that you came to the Española area?
Well, the very first thing was my father, Elbert Lowdermilk, got the contract to build the first road to Los Alamos in 1943. And that's how I came. In 43, I was maybe been 15 years old. And we came down we spent the summers with my father. I was still in school in Denver. And that's how I got to New Mexico. But I spent the summers here with my father, riding all over the mesas and walking on top of the ground. And I was here when he built the original road up the hill, and which has never been changed yet.
Where did you reside when you first came to this area?
Where did I come to?
Where did you reside? Where was your residence?
Española. Yeah, the Granada Hotel. That's where my dad stayed, at the Granada Hotel, and he would always get me a little room. Too bad they tore that down. But anyway, it was a landmark, and I stayed there. And then in the summertime, we rented a little house, and it was always from Louis Laws. I don't know if you remember him or not. But we rented that, and it was very, it had a wood cooking stove, and it did have running water and a bathroom, but that's how we spent the summers here in Española. And as time went on, things improved, but that's how it all began.
Who did your father deal with when he set up, when we were doing the contracting to build the road? Did he deal with the General Groves?
Well, he, I can't really tell you that. I think it was the Atomic Energy Commission, whoever was that, and let out the contracts. Because I remember when my father walked that job that made the road up the mountain, and they thought it was rock. Well, they didn't even, when they got into it, it was ash, toof or whatever. Tufa, yeah. And so that was a very interesting development in that road, because they did most of that road without any dynamite, and they thought they were going to have to use dynamite. There was one thing that did happen, though. My father's shovel, and those were the kind that the little kids play with now with the little bucket. The side of the road caved in, and it fell down that deep, and that's a very deep canyon, but nobody knows that, right before you get to the big water tanks. But they did get it out. They got it out, but it was a very interesting road to build. And of course, as we spoke earlier, that was a much bigger curve than it is now today. They've redone that highway up to the point where the cliffs begin and you go up the mountain. That part is not changed. That's the original road my father built.
Did you go with your father many times?
Oh,
the road was under construction.
Yes, and sometimes.
What were the impressions of all the commotion?
Right, and he had his. They used to call them yards, and one was right at the Y, that is now goes to White Rock, and I would often not ride with him, but go hiking all over those mesas. And I hiked in that old Indian pueblo that now starts with a T.
Sankawi.
Been all over through that, but that's when I was very young. And so I've hiked a lot of those mesas. It was so fabulous. And of course, I fell deeply in love with New Mexico. And then when Roy and I were married in 1947, my father said, if you would like a good job, come down and I'll put you to work. So we did, and we came down and lived in Totavi, which was a little settlement just below when you start up well, they used to call it the hill. And Roy put up a little service station, one gas pump that he had to hand pump. And my dad had like 80 gravel trucks. And he filled those gravel trucks all he was in really great shape. Looked like Tarzan, in fact. Anyway, that's how we started out. And then I decided that those darling little truckers needed something to eat, so we got a hot plate and got some pans, and I made hot dogs and green chili and served candy bars in this little tiny silver house that my dad brought down from the hill. And that's how we got started. And then as time went on, we got a lease from the Indians, because we were on San Ildefonso land, and opened up at that time it was Standard Oil Station, and it's gone now too, but that's how we started out.
Going back to the early days of the Manhattan Project, what was the biggest impact that your father had on the project besides building the road?
Oh.
You said something about transporting something from the
I
road.
would say the biggest impact is the bringing up the atom smasher to Los Alamos. That was the most exciting thing that happened to that community for a long time. Not everybody knew about it because it was secret. But when my dad took his 2 Kenworth trucks to Lamy, and where they put it was so heavy that they had to put half of it on the axle of one truck and the other half on the axle of the other truck, and one Kenworth had to back up all the way up the hill. They could not go over Ottaway Bridge because it wasn't strong enough to carry the load, so they had to go even farther to Española and come across the Española Bridge and go up that way. And it was a very exciting thing to see. Still gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. And there was a small group of scientists and dignitaries, all located right there where the water tanks are still today. And we watched that come up and go past us, and it was very, very exciting.
How long did this total transport take? Did it take weeks?
Oh, let's see. I probably imagine, I think they did it in about 12 hours, but I can't remember for sure. All I remember was the excitement when they got to the point of that curve and came around their curve and then went around that huge loop there and came in that way, and we watched it all the way, and it passed us right there it was pretty exciting, and everybody was thrilled. But that was the atom smasher, and after they got that, it was Katie bar the door, because that was the beginning.
Besides building the road to Los Alamos, how much of the road work in Los Alamos did your father do?
Oh,
And,
well, he put in all.
You were there riding the trucks.
Yep, I surely was, and I love that. He put in all the utilities and made all the highways, and he put in, there's one great big thing people don't even remember now, but that great big fill that goes over to the Barranca Mesa.
Oh, Pueblo Canyon.
It's not a bridge, it's a fill. And that was one of the biggest things, again, in Los Alamos, because that's all dirt. And then, of course, they put in all the highways. It was a very exciting time.
Did your father have any trouble getting fuel for his equipment? Was there any kind
Not
of
at that,
priority?
not that I remember, not at that time.
Did he have a priority to get fuel?
Oh, well, he had to have, what do you call it, permits that allowed us to have that fuel. And then our little tiny station at the bottom of the hill, we seemed to always were able to get fuel for all of those trucks because he ran 80 gravel trucks a day, and they made, from the gravel pits up they had to carry everything up the hill. There wasn't anything up there that, they had to take every single thing up the mountain. All the building material, all the gravel, everything.
Do you remember some of the people that used to work for your father?
Oh, there are a lot of guys that were truck drivers here in Española that I've run into through my living here. It's been wonderful. Give them a big hug. But some of them are gone now. Let's see. Cerna.
Felix Cerna?
Mm-hmm. He was a truck driver, and I can't remember everybody. I wish I could. But who?
Stan Coffey.
Well, he wasn't a truck driver. He was the concrete man. But Stanley Coffey lived here for many years, and he's, of course, gone now. But there were so many people that contributed to the building of Los Alamos. It's really a wonderful story.
And from your experience, most of the people that did the hard work, the construction work, came from Española.
I think so. I think so. They all around. That was the only place. Los Alamos was just beginning, and as you know, Los Alamos was the perfect city because there was no old parts, no slums, no nothing. It was all new. So all of the laboring and the experts and help came from Española and the surrounding area.
Now, your father had a yard in Fairview also, I remember that.
Where Richard Cook.
Can you tell us about how that came to be, the yard there in Fairview?
Well, they had to have a base point to have a big enough place to repair the big machines that they used on the roads. And there was no place that they could do that on the way to Los Alamos. When they built the road to Los Alamos, right there at the Y was their first yard, but it was not where, it was just a place where they had their office trailer, and they didn't have any repair work there. They had to take it clear to Española. And Española was where they did all of the work on their big machines and repaired and got ready for the next projects. And then as time went on, my dad had a yard right below, and I'm trying to think of what, there's office buildings there now, right before you, just before you get up onto the flat of the hill. There, I can't remember.
Not near the gate?
It was before the gate. You get to the gate, and then if you go down the hill, it's this group of buildings. They used to have a big yard there, but it still wasn't for repairs. It was for business and storage and for materials and so forth and so on.
Did your father find it very interesting dealing with the military?
Oh, he loved it.
He loved it. Okay.
He loved everything about Los Alamos. He loved the intelligent level that he dealt with. Those men were wonderful. He had some wonderful friends, and he worked a lot with the McKee people, who also did all the basic stuff. I mean, it took a lot of people, because this had to be done in a hurry. They had to have those sites built, they had to have roads built, they had to have utilities, they had to have it in a hurry. They were in a rush.
Now, do you remember what happened after the test at Trinity? Do you don't remember? You weren't living at Los Alamos?
Oh, I didn't ever live in Los Alamos.
Okay. Do you remember of any of the talk from the people about the Trinity test?
Very little. They honored their commitment. There was, and if my father knew, we never discussed that. It was, those people honored the secrecy part, because it was a totally secret thing.
When the war ended, or when they dropped the bombs on Japan, what did you remember about that time?
Well, it was a very emotional thing for us, because we were so close to, we didn't really build the bomb, but we helped in its beginning, and it was just an amazing thing. And I think that Los Alamos and the people that were in charge, you know, it was so overwhelming what happened. I don't know if they expected what they expected, but of course it ended the war. But all that intelligence, all that marvelous ingenuity was sparked then in another way, and they've done so magnificent things at Los Alamos. A lot of things that people today don't even know about.
One question. DP Road, your dad must have made
Yeah.
DP Road.
Yeah.
What does DP stand for?
You know what? I do not know. And if he can remember, he might refresh my mind. But I remember DP was, you know, really off limits, and we got to see it. And I did get to go into DP once with my dad, but he didn't have anything to do with the technology. He just did the basics, the stuff.
But that's why I asked if maybe you remembered.
And I can't remember.
I feel bad, you're not alone. Nobody seems to know.
I don't remember what DP stood for, but all I know is it was top secret.
Right.
And all we got to see was view it from afar, except that once that I got to go in.
Some people say that the P part was plutonium, but we don't know what the D part was.
Well, you know what? I wish I.
Yeah.
He worked there.
All right. Well, we'll ask you where you are.
I wish I could remember, but you know, we just always called it DP. You know, and then of course eventually they moved DP out of Los Alamos.
Yes. It's over across the
Yeah,
now.
it was up toward Bandelier.
Well, I think that was very, very interesting, very significant. We might come back and ask you more questions.
I wish I had more names and so forth, but it's been a little while. One person's talk might spark something else for me, because, but as I say, we weren't in on that, the technical part. We were just in on getting them up there. which was pretty important.
What was the funniest thing that ever happened while you were here? Maybe the funniest one or two things. And even if it's something that you've already mentioned, just say it again.
Funniest thing?
Funniest thing.
Well, I'll have to tell you something about my father. He was a very serious person, and he liked to do the very, very best he could. I can't remember anything that struck me as being funny, because he did the very, very best. And that road should be proof. That road is still just wonderful. And he did everything right up to snuff. But he was, everything was very serious and important to him. And I really can't remember anything funny.
There were lots of strange things. Can you think of, just bringing that accelerator, the atom smasher up the hill would be a strange thing. But can you think of other strange things that just sort of flash into your memory, maybe? And they don't have to be completely relevant to the project itself, but just things of the time.
Well, as time went on, as a young person, you know, my father, as I said, took his job very seriously. But as a young person going with him in the truck, I became absolutely infatuated with New Mexico and the Mesa country. And I walked all by myself, which was a no-no, but you know how that goes. And never had on boots, did it in tennis shoes, never saw a snake. All those years that I climbed all around, I was very fortunate that I didn't get clunked. But that was probably, for me, a really wonderful time of my life. And there was always that one little Indian thing that's in the round spot, but I never got there. But it was in a technical area, but I never got over there. But the Indian part absolutely fascinated me, and it is. You know, they were running around, a lot of them up there. So it was very interesting.
Your father must have managed very well to deal with people from different cultures. You had the military culture, you had the scientific culture, you had the Spanish culture, and you had the Indian culture. How did your father handle all these different cultures and get the most out of everybody?
Well, it was his personality. I don't know if you remember Abel Sanchez. He was governor of San Ildefonso, and he worked for my dad. And my dad always called him Chief, and he loved it. And he was a wonderful, great man. And of course, there's another culture. He was governor of San Ildefonso, went to Washington with the cane, that Abraham Lincoln. Oh, it's also wonderful, all that wonderful history. But he loved them, and he loved the Spanish people, and he got along just great with all those Zionists. He was a very interesting person. Did very well.
And he also had to put up with the generals and the military people. Were they very demanding?
They were very, well, my dad, gosh, I wish I could remember. My dad, I don't know if he had to answer to too many generals. Whoever was in charge of the letting of the road work, the job that he was supposed to do, I don't know if the generals were in there, even though he knew. He knew Dr. Oppenheimer. I didn't get to ever meet him, but he did. But you know, my dad, but he could get along with everybody. He was a wonderful person, and did a really good job, because that great huge fill that's up there that crosses that big valley, it's still just fine. And that's a long time ago. He did a great job.
That was one of the few places, well, that was one of the places that nobody was particularly worried after the Cerro Grande fire and all the floods and all the debris floods and stuff. They didn't have to make sure that those culverts kept open.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Well,
there was proof.
I know. He just loved his work. He loved to do the very best he could. And he did. He did a good job.
Was there anything that he ever mentioned that was scary or a special concern? Or was there anything that you ever found scary or a special concern?
Well, if there was, I don't think it ever occurred to him how powerful the atom bomb was. Well, I don't think anybody knew, you know. And when they had the Trinity, they knew the power that was going to happen. It was, you know, it was very mind-boggling to everybody. But my dad, his favorite things were rock, iron, and good work.
Good work, good roads.
Yeah.
Good roads, good
Yeah, he loved those materials to build with. And,
How old was he when he came up here?
pardon?
How old was he when he started the work at Los Alamos?
Let's see. I'll have to figure that out. He's exactly 30 years older than I am. So,
For him, way over 100.
well, yeah, now, but then, if I was 15, he was 43, or 45.
45.
He was 45.
And
And,
once he came
and in
to
his
this-
prime. Pardon?
Once he came to this area, he stayed in this area.
He stayed here for, I don't know, 30 years.
What was his background? What other projects did he work on before?
Well,
he came here?
my father was he built, with Lowdermilk brothers, he had his brothers Zimmy Lowdermilk and Hoyle Lowdermilk. That formed the partnership. My dad did, well, let's see, my dad lived here, so he did most of the stuff here in New Mexico. Hoyle and Zimmy went back and forth from Denver to here. But they were probably one of the most famous contracting firms in Colorado. They built so many of the mountain passes, and they built almost all of I-70 through Colorado. I mean, they were very qualified to do what he did here. So he got the Pioneer Award from Colorado.
That was your father or the?
My father. Because he was a genius. What can I say? He just simply was, looking back on everything, how he could look at a situation and say, this is how we can do this. I mean, he just was tuned in to road building, dirt, rock. He did wonderful bridges, wonderful things.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.